Pyle with VOD TV. We're at the Parks Associates Connections Conference at CTIA. We're with Adam Tichelaar of Amdocs. Adam, before we go into the meat of the interview, why don't you tell us a little bit about Amdocs?
Sure. So Amdocs is a large software provider to the telcos. We serve about 250 different service providers throughout the world. We're a publicly traded company here in the U.S., specializing in billing and operational support systems for all the telcos. So we do back office, CRM, billing, inventory management, all of the kind of business operations systems that a telco needs to provide services to their customers.
And of course, this has been a big deal for telcos for a long time. The whole the business operations support systems, they've needed it to turn up new customers and understand what they're doing and what the equipment's doing along the way. But recently, the whole idea of the Internet of Things and all this talk of big data has kind of come into the mix. And what are you seeing in regards to the service providers and their role as to doing stuff with this data?
So their role is actually very key, and it's because so much of the data that's collected with these systems is already in play. Right. So when you talk about the services you provide to a wireless customer or a cable provider, there's already a large amount of data that's being collected around what the customer services that they're buying, how they're being billed, what their activities are online to serve themselves when they call up the CRM or the customer support line to get help. So there's a large amount of data already in play. So the next logical step is how can we take that information and make it more personalized, more useful, and actually provide additional value-added services back to the subscriber.
And what sort of services are we talking about?
So, when we talk about things like personalization, the idea is that if we kind of know things about you, we know maybe your basic profile, your income level, we can actually provide, feedback around, hey, you might be interested in something like a localized service. You're walking down the street and you get a pop-up on your phone that says, hey, listen, we know that you have these kinds of, you're a football fan, you're a soccer fan. Hey, there's an opportunity at this restaurant or at a store where you may be interested in some products. So the idea is you can kind of blend those interactive services that you get from your smartphone or your tablet and extend it to other opportunities like retail. And so the idea is you get this more refined, personalized experience that's kind of aimed at you, that's a reflection of your behavior, it's a reflection of things that you're interested in, and the idea is it's also not intrusive. It's not just things being pushed at you, they're relevant to you. So it becomes much more of a relevant action, something that the subscriber kind of tunes in and says, hey, that's of interest to me.
From a service provider perspective, it seems like it starts to get into kind of a new area of business, maybe even to the point where they're selling advertising or doing something else, working with other people who are doing it at least.
Absolutely. So the ability to take that communications channel that's literally everyone's carrying around with them in their hand every day, it does open up a new line of business, literally, where you can partner with local providers and even national providers to do promotion, marketing. So, and again, the idea is it's not just blast advertising. It's more about what are you interested in. We know more about you, and we can use that information to help you. And provide, again, relevant content that's important to you as a subscriber.
And that's where having all this back-end data is probably key, right?
Absolutely. So you think about the volume of data that's just in a billing system alone, right? When you have 100 million subscribers on a system, it's vast. So the volume is a huge issue, but also the variety of data, especially when you talk about people interacting on a tablet and even the connected home when there's devices that are now talking and communicating. So you've got volume issues, you've got variety issues, and then ultimately you got what we call velocity, right? So even if you can process all that information, you've got to be able to turn it around and make it relevant quickly. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to wait 6 months to let somebody know about a deal. So you got to address those things, then ultimately you get to the value, right? So you deal with the volume and the variety, and then you can get velocity to provide meaningful feedback quickly, and then you get a value proposition out of that.
It seems like one of the challenges from an operator standpoint is just a culture aspect. There's probably a lot of this data siloed within the organizations, right?
Mm-hmm. No, and that's where the variety comes into play. So you've got traditionally large, disparate sets of data. So how can you take that data and normalize it, if you will, and utilize it in a way so that you're not having to try to move everything into one place and then process it? This is kind of a more traditional approach to how we can take and do a backhaul of data and do something meaningful with it. You have to be able to access and use these different kinds of data sets very quickly, and you don't want to create another system to deal with that. So unifying that in as part of a service offering, that's what Amdocs seeks to do. And again, the ultimate goal is we have to get information out quickly and meaningful information. Because if a provider starts promoting offers or ads or good feedback that's not relevant to you, you're going to lose mind share. They're going to tune into something else, and that's always a big challenge, is making sure that you're providing relevant information to the consumer, because they'll tune out. There's too many things in each person's day, so to speak. So making sure that, again, that it's relevant is so key.
Yeah, getting that message at the right time, at the right place, the right person. Now, some of the silos that have developed in those organizations are probably in a way natural, in the sense that you've got regulatory people who have very strict rules about privacy and so forth that have been in place for years and years and years. What are you seeing the impact of some of those rules, that are kind of legacy from the telephone industry? How's that impacting things? So,
it's a challenge, right? So traditionally, the data ownership has always been, kind of a big conundrum. In many cases, this is operational data that the provider's using to run their business, right? So they have a relevant use and stake in just taking care of it and owning it and protecting it for the benefit of the subscriber. But also now this information is becoming far more valuable to other parties. Mm-hmm. So how that gets opened up is the new challenge, right? And generally what you have to do, in my opinion, is it's a cooperative experience. It's making sure that the customer understands that you're going to maybe share their data. So the opt-in model is a good example of where, hey, are you interested in getting this kind of information? And you can opt into it. So it's you participate in the process. And that kind of demystifies it, right? It's not the shrouded in mystery, big brother kind of things that always come up and people get concerned about. It's more of, hey, listen, we're doing this for you. It's about getting better value to you as a customer, and you can choose to not participate if you want, but if you do, you're going to see great value add to your life and to these relevant opportunities for you.
Well, that's interesting. Could an operator who already has been following very strict rules as far as customer privacy, the CPNI type stuff, could they kind of parlay that position versus some of these new entrants, from the internet world, as, hey, we're the trusted source of your data and trusted, and we'll keep keep it close.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there is a trust factor that I think comes into to play. You think about even like utilities. Utilities have large amounts of data about their customers just because they manage all the energy consumption. You can tell a lot about what goes on in the home with energy. And traditionally, this is private data that they're not going to share it. They don't exchange it, and there's regulatory reasons for that. But also, what we've seen is that even the legislation around this has I don't want to say loosened, but become a little bit more agile and more updated, in that, hey, if a customer says, I want to share it, I'm okay with sharing this for specific reasons, then now you've got an opportunity to open that up, and you can start to leverage what would be traditionally siloed and protected, unavailable data for broad use. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's a good position, and it's all about trust, and the way that trust is going to be built is providing meaningful, relevant services, not just pushing things on a customer that they're not interested in. And I think, again, that participation, that feedback, that I'm part of it, right? And when you look at the internet generation, where people have grown up with the internet, they're far more comfortable with creating a login and password and signing or clicking that little terms of use, even if they don't read it. But somebody does read it. That's always the nice thing with enough people. Somebody does read it, and so we're far more trusting as that part of that generation. But at the same time, we have to look out for how this data is used. Make sure it's still protected. Luckily, we've got a really good proxy with things like consumer credit information and protecting financial data and how credit cards are used. So that's a good proxy to say, listen, we're going to protect the data the same way we would your financial data, which is very important. So I think we've got a relevant case here, and we're going to see it progress over time.
Well, Adam, you bring a very interesting perspective on this, given your experience, and appreciate your time on this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.